The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Peterborough once again. Now, don't be fooled when you look at where I'm standing here, because it looks like I could potentially be in an urban area. Well, I can tell you that this is definitely not an urban area. This village is fairly urbanised, to be fair, but it sits within a massive swathe of open Fenland countryside. Its name is Newborough. Newborough, New Fort. Alright, this weekend we're back in Peterborough, and I've got two for you this time which are inextricably linked to one another. We're in the vast, flat, open countryside that is the Cambridgeshire Fens today, and we're taking on Newborough. Located around 7 miles away from Peterborough, Newborough is quite a big village, proportionately speaking anyway. Given that this area is extremely rural, to find a village of this size slap bang in the middle of it is rather unusual. On the whole, the name Newborough is absolutely right as titles go. It has virtually no ancient history because as a settlement it was only founded in 1820 following the draining of the Fens. It was part of the much larger area known as Borough Great Fen. At first, Newborough was a very small place, and it took 80 years for the first wave of new houses to be built. It was shortly after 1900 that they came along, although they were not the last. After World War I, a raft of council houses were added, and then after World War II, another large council estate was built. Ever since, it's just kept expanding, with a series of private estates springing up around the place. Landmarks are of a modest number, but Newborough possesses a church, a school, a couple of shops, and a cricket club. This is still a very scattered parish. The main nucleus of settlement is just off the B1443, which at this point is an almost dead straight road across the Fens to Thorney, where it joins the A47. Despite that, there are several far-flung areas like the hamlet of Milking Nook, for example. We'll explore all of that as we drive across the Fens, so come with me and let's go exploring. When you first arrive in Newborough Parish from the west, you still have a fair way to drive before you hit the village of the same name. Located 7 miles away from Peterborough, Newborough sits within a huge, flat, open landscape, and it's only been around for 200 years. Newborough was part of a huge area called Borough Great Fen, the name of which still partially exists as a modern civil parish that borders this one. During the Saxon and medieval periods, almost all of Borough Great Fen lay underwater. You needed a boat to cross it. It was a swamp effectively, and the only inhabitable areas were islands. However, in the 17th century all of that changed and a brand new land was created thanks to a reclamation project. Behind it all was an engineer who long-time viewers will already know. It's been several years since we mentioned the channel's favourite Dutchman, but the Fens were drained by one Cornelius Vermuyden. He's the same man who drained the marshlands around the Humber, and if you want to learn about those, I've linked a couple of my previous videos in today's end screen. Here in Cambridgeshire, one of the earliest dikes he cut was the Highland Drain, which runs parallel to the Thorney Road. Vermuyden was clever too. He made use of the pre-existing Roman channel Carr Dyke, which we learned about in Peakirk. Although Carr Dyke was created to carry masonry stone from Peterborough to Lincoln, Vermuyden used it to aid the drainage, and it soon became an integral part of the system. Ever since, more efficient drainage systems have kept the Fens dry, and that means now the area around Newborough is perfect for arable farming. Within all this Fenland is the village of Newborough, but there's also some sparsely populated lanes with some isolated houses. One such area is known as Milking Nook. It's a hamlet which lies a mile to the west of Newborough. It was so named because in the 18th and 19th centuries, farmers from neighbouring villages brought their cattle here for summer pasture. The cows were herded from Barnock, Northborough, Glinton and Bainton along their own droves. The names of droves have survived, although newer roads don't match the ancient routeways. For mile after mile around here, you'll see crop fields, mostly cereals like wheat and barley, although there's some sugar beet thrown in too. Oilseed rape and linseed are also found out here as well. Among the most notable of the agricultural enterprises across Newborough is Fletcher's Farm, which is to the east of the village. Dating from the 19th century, it was sometimes known as Brown's Hospital Farm because it provided fresh produce for Brown's Hospital in Stamford. In early 2013, Peterborough City Council planned to allow AECOM to build 3 solar farms and 3 wind turbines on a 500-acre region within this farmland. As you can imagine, there was stiff opposition and the plans to build the wind turbines were scrapped. There is still some debate over whether a solar farm should go ahead. If it does, it's estimated that it would provide the council with an income of £30 million over 25 years, whilst also ensuring the locals would get cheaper energy bills. Plans for 2 of the 3 solar sites were scrapped in 2014, leaving only one at America Farm. At present though, nothing has been built. Yet. Now, although it's a lump closer to the village itself, in some ways just as isolated as the farms and hamlets across the fen is Newborough's cricket club. Let's head there now. Boy, let me tell you, these Fenland roads are something else. I should be used to them being from Lincolnshire, but out here, it's a heck of a lot bumpier, I'll tell you. This one I've just driven on here towards the cricket club. Blimey. It's like a roller coaster. Okay, so here we are then. Here we are at the cricket club, Newborough and Borough Fen Coronation playing fields. Let's check these out. Sports-wise, Newborough is a little limited, and Cambridgeshire is perhaps not the first county that springs to mind when you think of cricket. That said, here in Newborough, it's thriving. Established in 1903, Newborough Cricket Club boasts 4 senior teams as well as a thriving youth section. As a club, it's definitely going places. It has a brand new pavilion installed recently, whilst grant funding from building firm Mick George, the club's main sponsor, has also provided some new training equipment in the last few years. The money even stretched far enough that it could cover an artificial wicket, wicket covers, 2 full practice nets, a bowling machine and an electronic scoreboard. With few amenities in Newborough, the cricket club sees itself as a vital part of community life here. It's anticipated that these recent changes will be welcomed by all. Okay, it's kind of a bit of a bolt from the blue, to be honest with you, to find yourself in a village like Newborough when you've just been driving around a huge Fenland area like that. It's kind of a strange setup with a very compact village. That's how I describe this place, in the middle of a great big open expanse of countryside. But that's Newborough. So let's get to walking around. We're on Gunton's Road, and this is the main road through the place from north to south, and our first landmark is just up there on the right. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't a long walk. Our start point, which will also be our finishing point later, is the village hall on Gunton's Road. This was originally built in 1907 by the Newborough Friendly Society. It's been extended since, probably in the 1950s or early 1960s, looking at the architecture. Older viewers might remember going to the Cub Scouts and the Sunshine Corner meetings in here. The latter was a Christian group for children, which was a bit like a Sunday school, except it was held every Wednesday evening and run by a woman called Joy. Whilst quite large in terms of population, Newborough can be described as a compact settlement. Virtually all of its streets are packed together within a rectangle of roads. The only exception to the rule is Gunton's Road, which stretches to the south. In a way, looking at an overhead map of the place, it resembles something you're more likely to see in the USA. Newborough's church is a Gothic yellow brick building dedicated to St Bartholomew. Because the village has only been here for 200 years, this church is fairly modern. Building work began on the church in 1823 and was completed in 1830. The work was financed in part by the sale of the Borough Fen estate at the time of the enclosures in 1822. Inside this one there's a royal coat of arms displayed high on the arched wall above the entrance to the sanctuary. In the early 1900s, Crow Tree Farm, which is within Newborough Parish, was owned by a man named Frederick Griffin, who made his name by breeding shire horses for export to Europe and America. He was also a church warden at Newborough, and today there's a stained glass window to his memory. Crow Tree Farm is now a mixed farm, owned by Griffin's great-great-grandson. Okay, just before we go any further, there's a parish notice board outside the church, and regular viewers know what that means. It means one of these cards is going on there, and that signifies our visit to Newborough is done, basically, even though we haven't finished walking yet. Let's mark it off. So there we go. Newborough's in the books. The centre of Newborough is a little hard to define, but I reckon if you're going to place it anywhere, it would be here at this crossroads. This is where Gunton's Road meets Soak Road and School Road. Close to where the roads meet is a small shop. This used to be a butcher's, and it only closed 2 years ago. Known to the locals as PL Phoenix, it closed its doors in 2023 after some 45 years in business. The move came because the landlord was looking to sell the building. Phoenix had previously operated in several locations across the Fens, including places such as Crowland and Langtoft. There were, however, no plans to reopen again in a different spot, meaning Newborough is now without a butcher shop for the first time in half a century. Several generations of the Law family were operating as butchers in the village as far back as the 1860s. Aside from the old butcher's shop, also at this central junction you'll find perhaps an unusual landmark for a village in the middle of the Fens, a dental surgery. Next up we have the primary school. There's been a school in Newborough since 1840, so clearly the locals wasted no time in establishing one soon after the village was founded. However, the present school is not the original. That was replaced by a new building in 1854, constructed on what was formerly known as Crown Road. Later, that street would be renamed to School Road, and it stayed that way ever since. In around 1878, the school was enlarged. Between 1900 and 1930, it was again almost completely rebuilt and extended to the south before being remodelled again in 1959 to include a kitchen, a cloakroom and another classroom. In 1976, further extensions provided 2 more classrooms, a hall and a new kitchen. 2 more mobile classrooms were added in 1997 and 2001 respectively. But all of that is still not the school you see today. In September 2004, work began on building another brand new school on the same site, and this is the result. It opened on January the 9th, 2006. Now, in terms of recreational space and sporting activities, we already know a bit about the cricket club. Otherwise, the only other similar plot in Newborough is a playground at the end of Ferny Close. This has a small football pitch and a playground, but you can't really call this a playing field. That's why the cricket club is such a vital part of Newborough's community. As well as the dental surgery, Newborough has another building that's related to healthcare. This is a little odd actually. If you look at this on Google Maps, it lists it as a pharmacy, and I can confirm that it is. However, that's not all it is. It is also apparently an ear microsuction and skin clinic. They provide an ear microsuction service here, along with other health checks and minor operations that improve hearing. And if you're wondering what ear microsuction is, it's a procedure that removes excess earwax or foreign objects from the ear canal using a small suction tube and a fine suction end. According to what I read before writing this episode, it's a lot safer than syringing or ear irrigation, to give it its Sunday name. So as I said at the top of this video, you could mistake the centre of Newborough for an urban area, but you're quickly reminded at the end of School Road that this is definitely not urban. There you go. There is the fen, stretching for miles and miles into the Cambridgeshire countryside. We're going to take a left turn now onto Peterborough Road and then back on ourselves through a residential area that will take us back to Gunton's. This next section sees us make our way through some residential areas to the north of where we've just been. Newborough is a village that's just kept growing ever since the 1820s. Population figures tell us that today the village has just over 1,800 residents. That figure will increase more and more with the expansion of the village to the west. Growth is not an alien concept here. In 1881 there were 342 people, with the majority working in agriculture. There's absolutely no surprises there. Only 3 individuals of that number had a professional occupation, and the rest were listed as having an unknown occupation. The 2011 census recorded a working population of 504 males and 422 females in Newborough, a huge increase. The jobs have also changed, shifting from the agricultural sector to the professional. In that time, the village's housing stock has also exploded. The total number of houses here has risen from just 68 in 1831 to 1,136 in 2011. It's been a rather rapid increase. It's even quicker when you consider that the first wave of new houses didn't come along until 1900, a full 80 years after Newborough had been founded. After World War I, a raft of council houses were added, and then after World War II, another large council estate was built. Since then, brand new estates and areas of infill have been added too. Detached houses or bungalows now account for 62% of all the properties in Newborough, whilst another 30% are semi-detached. So it's a good thing then that Newborough has a shop to serve its residents on Gunton's Road. It's kind of a necessity really, because it's a long walk to Peterborough from here. This is Mandairs, which according to a lot of locals is a proper shop. It's otherwise known as Newborough Stores. If you visit this shop, you might think it's closed, even when it's not. The reason for that is actually rather humorous. The front door is very heavy, and so you have to put all your weight against it to get it open. That fact is displayed in big bold letters as the header for the shop's Facebook page. So go on in and do your shopping, because I promise you they're not shut. Okay, so Newborough might have a shop, but one thing it doesn't have at the moment, unfortunately, is a pub. There is a pub building here, as you can see, but this is very much not open at the moment. It was recently though. It closed down. So let's talk a bit about the Bull next. At the top of Gunton's Road is the Bull, which is the only pub in Newborough. This must surely be one of, if not the oldest building in the village. At least 3 separate sources claim that this pub dates back to the 17th century, which means it must have been built not long after Vermuyden drained the Fens. It's either that or it was on an island, so personally I'm still a bit dubious about that date. The history of it otherwise is a bit sketchy. It's known that it once had a different name, but nobody seems to know what it was. The only other pub in Newborough Parish was in Milking Nook, and it was called the Red Cow. Unfortunately, this pub is currently closed. It shut its doors rather unexpectedly last year, after having only just reopened a few months before. At present, nobody knows its immediate future. When open, it was a hive of community activity. At election time, this was used as the polling station, and on the political theme, the local MP often held surgeries here. To complete our journey around the rectangular area that defines the main part of Newborough, we have a brand new section of housing that's not even marked on some modern maps yet. This is Bramble Close, which is built on what was previously one of those rich arable fields that surround the rest of Newborough. There's no telling with how many new houses that have already been built just how big Newborough may grow in the future. I somehow think that with the growth the place has already seen over the last 200 years, it's not out of the question that Newborough may become much bigger pretty quickly. From here, it's just a simple case of working our way back to Guntons Road and then southwards, returning to the village hall. Okay, we're back at the central garden where this video began. Let's have a look around this, because there's a few bits and bobs in this which we haven't talked about yet. One of them is this village sign, which has got a soldier on it there, so I suppose that passes for Newborough's War Memorial. There's also a bench over here that says the Queen's Platinum Jubilee 2022, so that's very new. Next to that you've got an old phone box, which is a book exchange. And then there's a war memorial bench over here, and between that and the phone box is an information board which tells you a few bits and bobs, and there's a few things on here which we've already covered. This is called Crown Garden, and this is to do with the Crown Inn by the looks of it. Let's have a read of it. For years this area has been known as Soak Road Corner. However, in 2022 the Newborough and Fenland Parish Council decided to rename the corner following a renovation of the paved garden. The name was derived from the Crown Inn that once stood close to this site and in memory of Queen Elizabeth II, who died in 2022. The Crown Inn, which is this building here, was built between 1842 and 44. It's thought it was originally built as a hotel for the expected railway that was planned to come through Newborough sometime after 1845. The inn was built and owned by Phillips Brewery of Stamford, and its first landlord was Richard Baxter. It goes on at length about it there. I'm not going to read it all out. Maybe you should pay a visit to Newborough yourself and have a read of the rest of it if you want to know a bit more about the Crown Inn. But that's exactly what used to stand right here on this garden. And that brings our journey around Newborough to a close, because from here all we have to do really is head back down Guntons Road to where the car is. Excellent stuff. So that's the first part of Borough Great Fen covered. So what about the rest of it? Well, whilst Newborough accounts for the main part of this story, I reckon the other bit is way more interesting. Adjoining Newborough to the north is the other part of Borough Great Fen. Although it looks like farmland as far as the eye can see, it's got a fair few secrets. Join me tomorrow to learn about them. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.